The Catholic world finds itself in vigil and prayer, facing one of the most significant moments in its history, the choice of the next pope. With Francis's death, a pontificate marked by mercy, reform, and care for the poor comes to an end. The College of Cardinals, now gathered in Rome, bears on its shoulders a sacred mission to discern, under the light of the Holy Spirit, who will be the new vicar of Christ on earth. In their hearts burns the responsibility of continuing the mission left by Peter. There are 135 cardinal electors from the 5 continents summoned to the conclave. Of these, 108 were appointed by Pope Francis himself, which indicates a possible tendency to continue his pastoral and missionary vision. The conclave, a word deriving from the Latin cum clave, with a key, will be held in the Sistine Chapel in the heart of the Vatican. There the cardinals will remain in seclusion, cut off from the world, until one of them is elected the successor of Peter. As the chapel doors close, the entire world turns its eyes to the chimney. From it will rise the white smoke, the sign of a choice. But who will this man be? Which names stand out among the papabili? Among the most frequently mentioned is Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the Vatican Secretary of State. An Italian and experienced diplomat, he is seen as a man of balance and continuity, highly respected in the inner circles of the Roman Curia. Parolin has extensive experience in the Church's international relations. He led delicate negotiations, such as the agreement with China on the appointment of bishops, something that drew both praise and controversy. His discreet yet firm profile appeals to those who desire stability. However, some see him more as a man of backroom dealings than as the spiritual leader of more than 1 billion Catholics. Another rising name is Cardinal Matteo Zuppi, Archbishop of Bologna. Known for his charisma, simplicity, and hands-on work with the poor, Zuppi represents a pastoral face of the Church. Zuppi was a member of the community of Sant'Egidio and worked actively for peace in conflict-ridden countries. His election would be seen as a continuation of Francis's style, centered on mercy and listening to the peripheries. His attentive regard for migrants, the sick, and the victims of urban violence has made him beloved among many Italian Catholics. Yet some consider him too young for the office, though age is far from an impediment. Asia also presents a strong candidate, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle of the Philippines. Prefect of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples, he's a familiar and beloved face to many with a keen missionary sensibility. Tagle has a captivating smile and vibrant spirituality. Often compared to John Paul II for his charisma and tenderness, he would be the first Asian pope in modern history, in a continent where Catholicism is growing vigorously. His theology, centered on compassion and humility, resonates with the directives of Vatican II, and he has already been called the Asian Francis for his closeness to the people and his evangelizing zeal. However, his link to Francis may be viewed by some more conservative sectors as a risk of excessive continuity. Others, though, see in him a prophetic sign for the universal church. On the African continent, the name of Cardinal Peter Turkson of Ghana stands out. With solid theological training and strong involvement in social issues, Turkson symbolizes the hope of a more global church connected to the suffering of peoples. Turkson was prefect of the dicastery for promoting integral human development, and his voice stood out in debates on social justice, the dignity of labor and the environment, central themes of the encyclical Laudato Si. His election would represent a gesture of recognition for the African Church, whose vitality impresses and whose faith remains deeply rooted in Catholic tradition, even amid political and economic challenges. Nevertheless, some consider his profile more technical than pastoral, and his work in Rome was at times overshadowed by more media-friendly figures. Even so, he remains among the strong names of the conclave. Back in Europe, we find Cardinal Peter Erdő of Hungary. A respected theologian, he is Archbishop of Esztergom, Budapest, and represents a more traditional line of the Church, with strong appreciation for the liturgy and the magisterium. Erdő is considered an intellectual, with solid academic output and experience in dialogue with Orthodox and Protestants. His election would signal a desire for greater doctrinal rigor and moral clarity in leading the Church. His name is especially cherished among conservative sectors that long for a pope who reaffirms the foundations of the faith in the face of contemporary cultural challenges. However, his more reserved style and his country of origin, outside the traditional centers of Catholicism, may pose obstacles in an electoral college seeking balance between tradition and renewal. Finally, we have Cardinal Robert Serra of Guinea. At 79, he represents a firm traditionalist wing, with a strong presence in spirituality, silence, and liturgy. His figure is austere and deeply respected. Serra was prefect of the Congregation for Divine Worship and became a reference among those who defend the traditional liturgy. His election would be seen as a clear return to a more conservative line in guiding the Church. While names circulate through the Vatican corridors, the expectation of the faithful around the world grows. Many pray before the Blessed Sacrament, asking the Holy Spirit to guide the cardinals to choose a shepherd after the heart of Christ. In St. Peter's Square, pilgrims of every language gather, holding rosaries and candles, chanting hymns and pleading for a pope who will unite the Church, defend the faith and proclaim the gospel with courage amid the world's shadows. Inside the Sistine Chapel, each cardinal brings his history, spirituality, and vision of the Church. But there, before Michelangelo's Last Judgment, each one knows that the responsibility surpasses personal preferences. Black smoke, sign that no election has occurred, rises day after day. Journalists speculate. The faithful wait. The world watches. Yet the cardinals in silence allow themselves to be led by a discernment that must be more spiritual than political. Still, among the electors themselves, there are silent debates. Does the Church need continuity with Pope Francis, or a turn toward a stricter tradition? Should it prioritize dialogue with the world, or reaffirm its identity without concessions? Many believe the new pope must be a man of peace, capable of dialoguing with other religions, as Francis did with Islam and Judaism. Others think the next pontiff should be a more forceful defender of traditional Catholic doctrine. The balance between pastoral care and doctrine, between welcome and truth, between mission and identity, is the crucial point of the silent debate. None of the papabili escape this tension. Each represents a face of the Church, but none possesses her wholly. Some ecclesial analysts point out that the cardinals may surprise by choosing a name outside the list of favorites. History has already proved this in past conclaves, such as the election of Karol Wojtyła, whom few expected to see as Pope John Paul II. In light of this, new names begin to emerge discreetly, like Cardinal Jean-Claude Hollerich of Luxembourg, known for his work in the Synod of Bishops and for his commitment to ecclesial listening across Europe. Hollerich is a Jesuit like Pope Francis, and his pastoral sensitivity, combined with solid intellectual formation, makes him a name considered by those who desire continuity but with a European and dialogical face. Another possible surprise would be Cardinal Cláudio Humes of Brazil, though already advanced in age and with fragile health. His history of support for indigenous peoples and the Amazon makes him a symbol of a church turned toward the marginalized. Still in Latin America, Cardinal Odilo Pedro Serra, Archbishop of São Paulo, is seen as a balanced name, With good articulation, doctrinal firmness, and pastoral sensitivity, he could be a candidate capable of uniting different visions. Odilo is respected within the Roman Curia and close to several influential cardinals. His measured profile, without extremisms, appeals to both progressives and moderate conservatives, and his country, Brazil, has the largest number of Catholics in the world. Cardinal Christoph Schönborn of Vienna also appears as a venerable figure, a formator of ecclesial generations and a deep connoisseur of the catechism of the Catholic Church. He is regarded as a man of profound spiritual wisdom. Schönborn, however, has already declared that he does not desire the papacy, and his advanced age may also weigh. Even so, he is always remembered as a kingmaker, someone who can decisively influence the course of the election. The conclave is not an ordinary election. There are no public campaigns or formal debates. Everything is based on prayer, private conversations, the witness of life, and what the cardinals perceive as the Church's need at the present moment. Often, electors change their minds between one ballot and another. It is common for the Holy Spirit to inspire new names, or for a homily, a gesture, a word to transform the cardinal's perception of a given candidate. Liturgy plays a fundamental role in this process. Before each ballot, there is the Missa pro eligendo pontifice, where the preacher reminds the cardinals of the greatness of the mission and the need to choose a man of God, not of human glory. The Holy Spirit, though invisible, is invoked fervently. The cardinals know that, above personal or regional preferences, they must seek the one who will be universal pastor, father of the poor, defender of the faith, and bridge of unity. Meanwhile, secular media try to predict the outcome with political, geographic, or ideological criteria, but the people of God understand that the conclave is a mystery of grace, not of human calculation. Great cathedrals and parishes worldwide organize prayer vigils, Eucharistic adoration, and community rosaries. The Church unites in supplication, awaiting more than a leader, a true shepherd after Christ's own heart. Inside the Sistine Chapel, the ballots are cast one by one. The cardinals swear to keep absolute secrecy about the deliberations. Each ballot is read and burned. The smoke rises, still black. The world waits. The Church prays. In every Catholic soul, there is an awareness that this moment does not belong to politics, but to providence. As St. John Paul II said, "In the Church there are no coincidences, there are designs of God." The names continue to circulate among murmurs and hopes. An African, an Asian, a Latin American again, or a return to European tradition? God knows the heart of each cardinal. The faithful know only their faces. At the heart of the Church pulses the certainty that the Lord, faithful to his promise, will not abandon her. The Spirit blows where he wills, and once more he will blow beneath Michelangelo's frescoes, choosing the one who will say, Habemus Papam. With each passing day in the conclave, the expectation intensifies. The silence within the Sistine Chapel contrasts with the commotion outside. Inside, the cardinals walk together in prayer and discernment. Outside, the faithful fall to their knees. There is something deeply spiritual in the mystery surrounding the election of a pope. The Church does not choose merely an administrator, but the successor of Peter, the one who will hold the keys of the kingdom, to bind and loose, to confirm the brethren in faith. In the heart of the Church echoes Christ's promise, "You are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church." Every conclave is a new echo of this truth, a renewal of God's fidelity to his bride, the Catholic Church. Amid the well-known names, less talked about yet no less relevant possibilities begin to surface. The Church has already seen unexpected popes, men of silent prayer who, upon assuming Peter's throne, revealed spiritual greatness. One such discreet name is Cardinal Dominique Mamberti of Corsica. With a solid juridical formation and experience as a diplomat of the Holy See, he is respected for his sobriety and wisdom. Though not among the favorites, he is considered a possible. Another figure, though younger, who has drawn attention is Cardinal Dieudonné Nzapalainga of the Central African Republic, Archbishop of Bangui. He is known for his courage amid war and for his witness of reconciliation between Christians and Muslims. His election would represent a bold and prophetic choice, raising the voice of the poor and the peripheries to the highest throne of the Church. At 57, he would be one of the youngest popes in recent history, which would also raise hopes for a long pontificate. Some cardinals weigh the need for a pontiff who speaks clearly and firmly about the great moral challenges of our times: abortion, euthanasia, gender ideology, and rampant secularization. In this vein, names like Cardinal Raymond Burke emerge among the most traditional. However, his public opposition to certain decisions of Francis and his polarizing profile hinder his acceptance by a two-thirds majority. The Church seeks unity. The next pope cannot be merely an icon of one current. He must be father to all, teacher of the faith, servant of the servants of God. For this reason, many eyes turn to names capable of integrating rather than dividing. In that scenario, Cardinal Sean O'Malley, Archbishop of Boston, stands out as a name respected across different wings. A Capuchin, austere, committed to combating ecclesiastical abuse, he carries the mark of credibility. His Franciscan simplicity and pastoral stance make him admired by both faithful and clergy. However, his advanced age may weigh in the final decision. The conclave seems to seek someone who unites charisma, doctrine, and physical vigor. A decisive aspect is the personal spirituality of the candidates. The next pope must be a man deeply rooted in prayer, accustomed to adoration, in love with the word, and obedient to tradition. Without this, the weight of the Petrine ministry becomes unsustainable. There are cardinals who, though theologically brilliant, lack the desired pastoral profile. Others, very charismatic, lack curial experience. And there are those who have all this but not the health necessary to face the mission. Time advances, new ballots occur, the black smoke persists, but a mood of maturation is in the air. Votes begin to converge around some names. The spirit blows, and the hearts of the cardinals begin to sense a common call. The profile taking shape is that of a shepherd with international experience, spiritual sensitivity, fidelity to doctrine, yet also with missionary charisma and openness to listen to the Church's diversity. Some point out that the election of a non-European pope could reinforce the Church's universal character. Africa and Asia are growing in number of faithful vocations and pastoral dynamism. Perhaps it is time to give these continents a voice on Peter's throne. Others argue that, given the cultural crisis afflicting Europe, a pope with European roots is needed to re-evangelize the cradle of Christianity with courage, truth, and beauty. Meanwhile, the faithful keep praying. Clergy, religious men and women implore light from above. Children in schools celebrate votive masses. Cloistered monks offer fasting and vigils. The whole Church is in conclave. The cardinals live days of introspection. Many spend hours in silent prayer before the tabernacle. They ask for light, peace, discernment. They know this choice surpasses the limits of time. It is an act with eternal consequences. The Church's history is full of such moments, and in each one, the Holy Spirit has never abandoned Peter's boat. Even in times of storm, the Pope is the visible anchor of unity and truth. Inside the Sistine Chapel, conversations diminish. The cardinals feel they are close to consensus. Differences begin to give way to agreement. One name starts to emerge strongly, not through political maneuvering, but through spiritual recognition. The Dean of the College of Cardinals, in a calm voice, calls for a new ballot. Each cardinal casts his vote one by one. The scrutiny is made, the votes are counted. One name appears repeatedly until it surpasses the required 2/3. The smoke that rises now is white. The bells of St. Peter's Basilica peal vigorously. The crowds in the square erupt in jubilation. After days of silence, the world hears a new word: Habemus Papam. The Chosen One is among the considered names, but his acceptance surprises even the best informed. With humility, he accepts the cross. He steps onto the balcony. The eyes of the world behold him, and he presents himself as servant of the servants of God. When the white smoke appeared in the Roman sky, a cry swept the square. Tongues fell silent, and eyes turned to the central window of St. Peter's Basilica. It was the moment generations of Catholics never forget: the announcement of the new Pope. The red curtain opens slowly. The cardinal proto-deacon appears and pronounces words that resound like a spiritual thunder: Annuntio vobis gaudium magnum, habemus papam. I announce to you a great joy: we have a Pope. The name of the Chosen One is revealed. He is a cardinal of deep faith, silent prayer, and faithful shepherding. A man who was not among the most media exposed, but who for years had served with humility and firmness the faithful of his diocese. He chooses a name that symbolizes his mission, a name that unites the firmness of Peter, the tenderness of John Paul, the humility of Francis, and the doctrine of Benedict. His pontifical name is a message, a prayer, and a promise. The faithful, in tears, acclaim their new shepherd. He appears before the people with lowered eyes and a serene face. In silence for a few seconds, he contemplates that immense multitude. Then he speaks. "Brothers and sisters, good evening." With a calm voice, he asks for prayer. And before blessing the world, he kneels before the people and asks everyone to pray for him. It is a gesture of humility that echoes the first moments of Francis's pontificate, renewing the spirit of service. His apostolic blessing descends upon anxious hearts. Priests, religious sisters, children, the elderly, all weep with joy. There is a new shepherd for the church, and Peter's bark sails on, steered by Christ's hands through this chosen man. In the following days, the new pope begins to give the first signs of his style. His homilies are simple yet dense in doctrine. He speaks clearly about faith, salvation, mercy, and the need for conversion. In his first general audience, he embraces children, greets the disabled, and welcomes pilgrims with an open smile. Yet in his gaze, one sees the gravity of the mission entrusted to him. He bears on his shoulders the weight of the Catholic world. He soon announces his desire to visit the peripheries of human suffering, a refugee camp, a war zone, a hospital for the terminally ill. He wants to be a real presence where Christ is crucified in the poor and forgotten. He meets with the cardinals, listens attentively, and promotes encounters with representatives of other religions. He reaffirms commitment to Catholic doctrine and opens space for dialogue without ever relativizing the truth. In his first pontifical document, he speaks of hope. He says the world needs Christ more than ever. He condemns materialism, the throwaway culture, and indifference to human life, and he invites everyone to rediscover the gospel. The faithful perceive that he is a profoundly Catholic pope, rooted in tradition, yet with an eye to the future. He honors previous popes, but brings his own style, without ruptures, with fidelity and creativity. His gestures of poverty and simplicity captivate. He decides to keep his wooden mission cross, his pectoral cross of a missionary. He prefers to reside at the Domus Sanctae Martae to be closer to others, but his heart is set on heaven. Behind the scenes at the Vatican, he discreetly initiates administrative reforms. He promotes transparency, values the witness of the saints, and encourages a spiritual renewal among clergy and laity. In his catecheses, He speaks gently about the sacraments, especially the Eucharist and confession. He calls young people to holiness, married couples to fidelity, priests to total self-giving, and consecrated persons to their original fervor. His Eucharistic spirituality is evident. He spends long hours in silent adoration. He encourages parishes to revalue the Blessed Sacrament. He speaks of the Mass as heaven on earth. The Church rediscovers the center of her faith. He writes about contemporary Christian martyrs, victims of hatred of the faith. He asks for prayer for persecuted Christians and sends envoys to conflict zones. His voice is prophetic. The Church grows on the blood of martyrs. The new Pope presents himself as a shepherd with the smell of the sheep, but also as a firm vicar who is not afraid to announce unpopular truths. He speaks out against abortion, euthanasia, and the destruction of the natural family. Catholic youth are inspired. He announces a new World Youth Day. Millions register. A new spiritual energy spreads through the Church. He says, "Be witnesses of the joy of the gospel." On his apostolic journeys, he carries the rosary and the cross. He venerates saints' relics, prays where miracles occurred, and revives the memory of the Church that suffers, serves, and loves. Tradition is not forgotten. It is celebrated. He convokes a holy year of hope. Thousands return to confession. Churches fill up. New vocations flourish. Monasteries receive young people. A new vigor blooms in Catholic faith, and many recognize this Pope was chosen by God. The world begins to listen again to the Church's voice. Secular leaders respect him. Atheists are moved by his charity. Critics admit his coherence, and the faithful more than ever trust that Christ truly is with his Church. Thus begins a new phase in the Church's journey. Apostolic succession continues, and the new Pope, like Peter, casts the nets again, trusting in the Master who never abandons his boat. The name of the new Pope now echoes in litanies, rosaries, and masses. He becomes a living part of the Church's sacred history. And as God's servant, he guides the flock toward the kingdom, for the promise remains, "Behold, I am with you always, until the end of the age."